the man who gave me back my name. I was 11 when I met him. The social worker told me his name was David Quinn. He walked into the room wearing a navy coat and shoes that didn't squeak on the floor like the others. He didn't smile the way most prospective adopters did. Awkward, hopeful, desperate. He looked at me like I wasn't broken, like I was just waiting to be seen. "I'm not here to fix you," he said on the first day. "I'm here if you want someone to stand beside you while you learn how to fix yourself." I didn't know what to say. No one had ever offered that before. Not after the police found me hiding behind a dumpster with a bruised arm and a bag of stale bread. Not after they asked me if I knew where my mother went, and I told them, "She said she'd come back, but she lied." David didn't ask for promises. He didn't expect thank yous. He just showed up. He let me keep my last name. He let me pick the color of my room. He made me toast with cinnamon sugar when I couldn't sleep. And when the nightmares got too bad, he sat on the floor beside my bed and read old stories in a voice so calm I forgot to be afraid. People called him a good man. I called him Dad. He never dated, never brought anyone home. For 12 years, it was just the two of us. Simple, safe, enough. Or so I thought. When I turned 23, I left for college in another city. We talked less, but that was normal. I was busy. He was still working as a university professor. But one day, something changed. It started with a voicemail. "Hey, sweetheart, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. Maybe come visit this weekend?" No rush. His voice sounded nervous. David was never nervous. I made the trip home the next day. The house looked the same. Books on every surface, that awful green couch he refused to replace. But there was an extra pair of shoes by the door. Women's heels, expensive. I paused. Maybe he was seeing someone? I was surprised, but I didn't mind. If anyone deserved happiness, it was him. He greeted me at the door like usual. Big hug, tight grip. But there was something else in his eyes. Something unsure. "Come in, there's someone I want you to meet." I walked into the kitchen and froze. She turned around from the sink, wiping her hands on a dish towel. I hadn't seen her in over a decade, but I knew her. Every child remembers the face of the person who left them behind. "Mom?" I choked out. She smiled nervously. "Hi, baby." David stepped forward. "Lily, we got married last month." Everything stopped. Married? To her? The woman who disappeared without a word? Who left me in the cold and never came back? "You knew where she was?" I whispered. "I found her 2 years ago," he said softly. "We reconnected. I didn't know how to tell you." "So you just didn't?" I couldn't breathe. The man who gave me safety, who taught me how to trust again, had been building a life with the person who destroyed me. And I wasn't even invited to the decision. I stood there, 23 years old, feeling like the 11-year-old girl behind the dumpster again. Forgotten. Small. Replaceable. Why did he choose her over me? I didn't stay the night. I couldn't. The minute they said we got married, something inside me cracked open. And it wasn't the kind of break that heals over time. It was the kind that reshapes everything you thought you knew. David, the man who tucked me in when I couldn't breathe through panic attacks, who made me hot cocoa and told me the world couldn't take me down because I was his girl, had built a life with the woman who left me to survive alone. I took a cab to a cheap motel and stared at the ceiling for hours. Heart thudding, ears still echoing with one sentence. We got married. The next morning he called. I ignored it. The second time I answered. "I'm sorry," he said. "No, David, you don't get to say sorry like this was forgetting my birthday." Silence. "You didn't tell me. Not once. Not when you found her. Not when she stepped back into your life. Not even when you decided to make her your wife. So, it wasn't that simple," he said softly. "It was for me. You made a choice, and it wasn't me." He came to the motel an hour later, wearing the same coat he wore the day he adopted me. But it didn't look like armor anymore. It looked like a lie. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded barely. He sat across from me, his shoulders hunched like a man carrying too many truths. "I didn't expect to find her again," he began. "I was in Boston for a lecture. She was there, at the same cafe. You just reconnected?" I didn't speak to her at first. I watched her leave, but something in me couldn't let it go. "So you followed her?" I asked her why she left, and she told me the truth. I scoffed. "She lies easily. She always has." He paused. "She said she was in a bad place back then. Addiction, homelessness, fear. She thought leaving you with strangers was saving you." I clenched my jaw. "No, leaving is not saving. She let me starve. She let me freeze. She looked me in the eye and said, 'I'll come back.' And then she didn't." He looked away. "I know. Then why her, David?" My voice cracked. Why the woman who destroyed everything I had left? Why not anyone else in the entire world? He swallowed. Hard. Because she's your mother. No, you were my parent. You were the one who stayed. She was just DNA. I stood, pacing. The anger wasn't sharp. It was deep, heavy, like carrying someone else's shame for too long. You should have told me. I was scared you'd never forgive me. You were right. He stood too. I didn't choose her over you. But you didn't choose me either. His eyes welled up. I tried to keep both. To believe that maybe we could be a family again. You don't get to rewrite history, David. I wasn't trying to. Yes, you were. You put a ring on the woman who broke me and hoped I'd just smile and call it love. We both stood in silence, two people who once trusted each other more than blood, now on opposite sides of the truth. Do you still love me? I asked, tears hot in my eyes. More than anything, he whispered. Then why do I feel like I've been replaced? He reached for my hand, but I didn't move. Because maybe love wasn't supposed to look like this, I said. Maybe you saved me once, but right now I don't know who you are. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just stood there. A man who wanted to fix what he'd broken but had no tools left. Tell her to stay away from me, I said. And from now on, I'll decide what family means to me. I turned away. And this time he didn't follow. I wanted my father back, not my past. The next week passed in fragments. I returned to my apartment in the city, but nothing felt like mine anymore. My bed, my books, my reflection. Everything felt like it belonged to someone I used to be. Before I stood in that kitchen and watched the two people who shaped my life pretend like we could all be a family. David called, twice. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to hear his voice, but because I didn't know what I'd say if I did. I wasn't ready to forgive. But I also wasn't ready to forget 12 years of love. He wasn't just someone who took me in. He was the man who waited outside the principal's office when I punched a bully in 7th grade. The man who drove me 2 hours just to see my favorite band. The man who said, if the world doesn't see you clearly, then it's the world that needs new glasses. I wanted that man back, but how could I reach for him without dragging her back into my life too? One afternoon, I opened my old photo box. It had been untouched for years. Still smelled like cedar and dust. I flipped through photos, birthdays, school dances, Christmas mornings. But one picture stopped me. It was the first photo we ever took together. David and me, at the courthouse. I was 11. I wore a hand-me-down dress and held his hand like it was a lifeline. We both smiled like we didn't know how the world would test us. Like we didn't care. I clutched the photo. I want him back, I whispered. That weekend, I showed up at the old house. The green couch was still there. So was the smell of cinnamon toast. But she wasn't. David opened the door. Surprised, unsure, like seeing a memory step out of a frame. She's not here, he said quickly. I told her to stay with a friend. I didn't want to overwhelm you. I nodded, stepping inside. I'm not here to talk about her. Okay? I'm here for you. We sat at the kitchen table. The same spot where he once helped me with algebra. Where he once told me how to break down fear like an equation. I missed you, he said quietly. Then why did you shut me out? Because I didn't know how to tell the truth without breaking something. You broke it anyway. He looked away. When I found her again, I didn't expect it to go beyond one conversation. But we talked. We healed. And suddenly I thought maybe, just maybe, I could give you something I never could before. A mother? Yes, I scoffed. You don't get to give me a mother. You already gave me something better. You. He looked at me, eyes filled with everything words couldn't carry. So how do I fix this? He asked. You don't, I said, but maybe you can help me fix what's left. I pulled the old photo from my bag and slid it across the table. He picked it up with shaking fingers. You remember this day? He nodded. You were so quiet that morning, but when the judge asked if you wanted to go through with it, you squeezed my hand and didn't let go. Because you were the first person who made me feel like I mattered. You still matter. Then don't expect me to forget how much it hurt to find out you didn't trust me with the truth. Silence filled the space. But this time, it didn't strangle us. It made room for something else. Reckoning, repair. I don't know what we are right now, I said. But I know what I need from you. Anything. Be honest. Always. Don't protect me by hiding. If I'm old enough to be hurt, then I'm old enough to know why. He reached across the table. Gently, carefully. Then let me start over. Not as a husband, not as a man who made a terrible mistake, but as the dad who still wants to be your safe place. I stared at his hand, then placed mine in it. And for the first time since that awful day, it felt like maybe I wasn't alone anymore. I can't call her mom. Not after everything, I didn't expect her to be at the house again. But when I walked in to drop off a book David had lent me, there she was, in the living room, sipping tea like she belonged there. Her hair was darker now, styled. She wore pearls like she was trying to dress up guilt. She looked up, startled but hopeful. Lily. I froze at the sound of my name on her tongue. It didn't feel warm. It didn't feel maternal. It felt like a stranger pronouncing history. Hi, I said flatly. David stood between us, awkward. I didn't know she'd be here, I said sharply. She just stopped by, he replied gently. To talk. To you or to me? Silence. She stood, setting her teacup down with trembling hands. I know I don't deserve your time, she said. You're right, she winced. But I didn't soften. Not this time. Then why are you here? I asked. To play house? To try and rewrite the past with new curtains and coffee dates? She took a breath. No, I'm here because I want to tell you the truth. You've had 23 years. I wasn't ready then. And I was ready to be left? Her mouth quivered, but again I didn't flinch. I was broken, she whispered. Addicted, lost. I thought leaving you was saving you. No, I snapped. As leaving me was abandoning me. Don't sugarcoat it with good intentions. David quietly left the room. He knew this wasn't his moment. She stepped closer. I thought of you every day. Then why didn't you come back? Because I was ashamed. And by the time I got clean, I didn't think I deserved you anymore. I looked at her. This woman, who gave me her eyes but not her arms, her voice but not her comfort. She had haunted every year of my childhood. And now she stood here asking for something I didn't know how to give. I didn't come here to make peace, I said. I came to return a book. Because David is the only parent I've ever had. Tears filled her eyes. I know you hate me. I don't hate you, I said honestly, but I can't call you Mom, not after everything. She covered her mouth, a sob escaping. I just want to know you. Even if it's not as your mother. That one sentence cracked something in me. Because it wasn't a demand. It wasn't a plea to be redeemed. It was a quiet, painful request. One I didn't know how to answer. I don't know who you are, I whispered. Then maybe we can start there. Silence. Not tense, not sharp, just quiet. Like two people standing at the edge of a truth neither one of them could undo. Don't expect holidays, I said, or birthdays or forgiveness. I won't. But maybe someday I can sit in a room with you and not feel like I'm 10 years old again. She nodded, tears slipping down. That's more than I thought I'd ever get. I picked up my bag, turned to the door. And just before I left, I said, you can call me Lily, but only when you mean it. She didn't speak. But her eyes said, I do. I had to relearn how to breathe around her. It's strange how silence becomes a language. In the weeks that followed, I found myself sitting across from the woman who gave me life and took it away, in a house that no longer felt like home. David tried to make things normal. Sunday breakfast, board games in the evening. He even offered to let me redecorate the guest room if I wanted to stay over. But nothing about this was normal. Not when the woman who used to haunt my dreams was now setting the table beside me. She didn't push, didn't ask for long conversations. But her presence, quiet, cautious, was constant. Every time she reached for a spoon or poured coffee, I held my breath. Waiting. For what? I didn't know. Maybe for her to slip. Maybe for me to scream. Maybe for David to realize this wasn't going to work. One evening, we sat in the living room. David had gone to the store, and it was just the two of us. Me on the edge of the couch, her curled up like she didn't want to take up space. You always liked mystery books, she said softly. I looked at her. You remembered that? I didn't forget everything. That should have comforted me. It didn't. Do you remember the time you left me outside that diner for 3 hours? I asked. She looked up, startled. I thought you'd gone inside. I sat on the curb counting cracks in the sidewalk. A cop asked if I was lost. I said, no, my mom's just late. Silence. Her fingers gripped the cushion. I don't expect you to forgive me, Lily. Then why are you here? Because I want to earn the right to at least know the woman you became. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it hurt. The woman I became her in spite of you. Not because of you. I know. No, you think you know. But you weren't there when I flinched every time someone walked away. You weren't there when David held my hand in court because I was too scared to speak. You weren't there when I begged for someone, anyone, to choose me. Tears burned my eyes. And now you're just here. Expecting me to breathe like this is okay. She didn't cry. She just sat there. Still. I don't expect it to be okay, she said. I just want to try. Even if all I ever get is this moment. I stood, pacing, because sitting still felt like suffocating. When David came back, he looked between us. He could feel the tension, but he didn't speak. He just placed the groceries on the counter and gave me a look that said, I'm here if you want me to be. Later that night, I stayed in the guest room. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know what I'd wake up needing. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, breathing in, breathing out, trying not to let my body tighten every time I heard her footsteps in the hallway, trying to remember that I wasn't 11 anymore, that this wasn't the same story, that I had a choice now. The next morning, I found a note outside my door. It was her handwriting. I remembered it faintly, from old grocery lists and forgotten birthday cards. The note was short. "I'll be gone for a few days. I know this is hard. Thank you for not slamming the door." It ended with no signature, just a small sketch of a lily flower in the corner. I stared at it for a long time, and for the first time in weeks, I exhaled without choking. She left me again, but this time I wasn't afraid. I stared at the note for a long time, long enough for the sunrise to crawl across the floor, long enough for the silence to settle into something familiar, but not frightening. She left. Again. But this time, I didn't feel abandoned. I walked downstairs. David was in the kitchen making eggs, like always. As if nothing had changed. As if everything had changed. "She left," I said. He nodded. "She told me last night, said she needed space, and that you probably did too." I poured myself a cup of coffee, the same kind he used to let me sip when I was 12 and pretended to be grown up. "Are you okay?" he asked. I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure what okay looked like anymore. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't drowning. I was just breathing. "I think so," I said. We sat at the table, side by side. No tears, no tension. Just two people who had been through enough silence to finally know how to sit in it without fear. "You know," I said quietly, "when I was little, I used to think if I was just better, maybe she would have stayed." David looked at me, eyes soft. "That's not your fault. It never was. I know that now. But do you believe it?" I thought for a moment, then nodded. "I do." He reached across the table and placed a photo in front of me. It was me, age 16, in a school play. I wore a ridiculous costume and a proud smile. "That night, you forgot half your lines," he said, smiling. "But you stayed on stage anyway. And when the curtain fell, you bowed like nothing had gone wrong." I laughed. "I remember. You've always been brave, Lily, even when you didn't feel it." I looked down at the picture, and for the first time, I didn't just see a girl surviving. I saw a girl who kept showing up, who kept trying. Later that day, I found myself walking through the garden in the back. It used to be David's project. Rows of stubborn tomatoes and wild lavender. Now, it felt like a place where stories settled, where grief sat in the soil, but so did forgiveness. I sat on the old bench under the oak tree and closed my eyes. She was gone again. But this time, she didn't disappear without warning. She didn't lie. She didn't run. She stepped back, maybe for me, maybe for her, maybe for both, and that was enough. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the note. The tiny lily she'd drawn in the corner stared back at me. Not a grand gesture, but a beginning. I folded it carefully and slipped it into the back of my journal. Not to hold on to the pain, but to remember that some goodbyes are not the end. Some are pauses in the story. Spaces to breathe. That evening, David and I watched a movie together. He let me choose. It was the same old comedy I used to love as a teen. The one where the characters mess everything up but somehow still find their way back to one another. We laughed. Not the way we used to, but something close, something honest. Before I went to bed, he stopped me in the hallway. "Lily," I turned. "Thank you for still being here," he said. "Thank you for not leaving." We didn't hug, but we didn't have to, because I was home. Not in a house, not with people who had titles like mother or father, but in myself. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of who might stay or go, because I finally knew I was staying for me. I let her back in, but on my terms. 3 weeks passed before she reached out again. It was a letter this time. No text, no email. Just a cream envelope slipped under my apartment door, with my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen since I was 5. "Dear Lily, I've rewritten this 10 times. I don't know what I'm asking for anymore. I just hope you'll read this. I didn't come back to fix things. I came back because I couldn't live with myself without trying to know you again. Not as your mother, but as the woman who once held you and didn't know how to keep holding on. If you ever want to talk, I'll be at the library cafe on Tuesday. At 10 a.m., I won't ask again, but I'll wait once." I read it 5 times. Then I folded it and placed it beside my coffee mug. It sat there for a day. Then 2, then Tuesday came. I didn't go because I owed her. I didn't go because I forgave her. I went because I had something to say, and I deserved to say it to her face. She was already there when I arrived. Same cafe where I used to hide out during finals. Same corner table. But this time, the weight wasn't in my books. It was in my chest. She looked up. Didn't smile, didn't reach out. just nodded, like she knew this wasn't her moment to own. "Thank you for coming," she said. I sat down. "This doesn't mean anything," I said sharply. "Not yet." "Understood." We sat in silence. A song played softly in the background. Someone behind the counter was steaming milk, but all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, measuring every second I was choosing to stay. "You don't get to walk in and expect a relationship," I said. "I don't expect anything." "Then why did you write that letter?" "Because I wanted you to know I was still here, even if you didn't want me to be." I looked at her. She wasn't trying to play the victim. She wasn't making promises. She was just waiting, like I had once waited. "I've spent years putting myself back together," I said. "And every piece I picked up had your fingerprints on it, even the ones you never meant to leave." She nodded slowly. "I believe that. And David, he's the one who held me through the pieces. Not you. He's a good man. He's my father, even if you married him." That hurt landed. I saw it in her shoulders. But she didn't defend herself. "I won't ever try to take that from you," she said. I took a deep breath. This wasn't easy, but it was necessary. If you want to be in my life, it's on my terms. Of course. That means no surprise visits, no guilt trips, no mother-daughter expectations. You show up, you stay honest, and you don't ask me for more than I'm ready to give. She blinked, tears filling her eyes. "That's more than I deserve. It's the only chance you'll get." We sat for another 10 minutes, talking about nothing. Books, the weather, a painting exhibit at the museum. It was awkward, it was stiff, but it was something. When I stood to leave, she stayed seated. Didn't ask to hug me, didn't say I love you. Just, "Thank you, Lily." I nodded and walked away. But when I stepped outside, the air felt different. Like I had closed a chapter but left the page slightly open. David called that night. "How did it go?" "Not bad." "Do you regret it?" "No," I said, because this time I got to speak first. I looked around my apartment. Same walls, same couch. But something had changed. Me. I wasn't the girl needing a mother anymore. I was the woman deciding who earned a place in her story. And for the first time, that felt like enough. I finally found peace. Without needing to forget, it's been 6 months. 6 months since that cafe conversation. 6 months since I said, "You can be in my life on my terms." 6 months since I stopped waiting to feel whole and just started building myself that way instead. My mother. No, Miranda. I still don't call her mom. She texts every now and then. Sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't. But there's a rhythm now. Not quite closeness, not quite distance. Something in between. Something honest. David and I meet for brunch every Sunday. He still tells terrible dad jokes. Still orders too much syrup with his pancakes. Still calls me kiddo, even though I haven't been a kid in a long time. But something's different too. There's more space in our conversations. Because now we know that love can hold both joy and hurt at the same time. And we don't run from that anymore. Last week he gave me something. A framed copy of the photo from the courthouse. The day he adopted me. But beside it, he added another photo. One I'd never seen. It was me at 16, on the night of the school play. Standing alone backstage, smiling into the dark. "You never needed a spotlight," he said. "You've always known how to shine without one." I cried. Not the messy, broken kind. The quiet, steady kind. Like my heart was finally making room for everything it had carried in silence. A few days later, Miranda asked if I wanted to join her at a book reading. I almost said no. But something in me, something older, softer, said yes. We sat side by side, two women who shared DNA and a past full of torn pages. But for 90 minutes, we listened to someone else's story. And for once, we didn't need to rewrite our own. Afterwards, she turned to me and said, "You look peaceful." I smiled. I am. It's not because I forgave her. Not fully, not yet, and maybe not ever. But I stopped giving her the power to reopen wounds that I had already stitched closed. I still remember the nights I cried for a mother who didn't come back. I still remember the weight of being 11 and unwanted. I still remember the hurt in David's eyes the day I told him I felt replaced. I don't erase those memories. I just stopped living inside them. People think healing means forgetting. But the truth? Healing means remembering without reliving. I kept the letter Miranda wrote me, and the note she left when she quietly walked away the second time. Not because I needed reminders of pain, but because they marked the moments I chose myself. I still don't know what will become. Her and me, or even me and David. But I do know this. I am not the broken girl he rescued, and I'm not the abandoned child she left. I'm Lily Quinn, a name I once wanted to erase and now wear with pride. Because I survived them. But more importantly, I survived me. End of part 8. Final chapter. Thank you for listening. Guess what? You don't have to forget to find peace. You just have to choose it again and again. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.